Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
Yes!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now. Drives in low. Throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody, welcome aboard and welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, ready to get your week kicked off. And as always, our good friend Greg Rakestraw here to do it. Brought to you by the Autograph app, where unhinged fans get unreal rewards. Just go to link.ag.fan/ISB Media. Greg Rakestraw, welcome aboard, sir. How are you?
Good morning, buddy.
I think we had a little connection issue there with Greg. Hopefully get that one straightened out. It's busy baseball weekend for everybody. I know that. Indiana-Purdue was playing. Indiana State was playing. And I think Greg was doing the Indiana State game. We'll get him back and try that out. But a huge series for Indiana and at Purdue, on the road no less, as they take on the Boilermakers and trying to get a piece of this Big Ten conference. There's Greg back with us. Greg, how are you, sir?
All right. I heard you loud and clear, but apparently you weren't hearing me. I hope you are the second time around.
Absolutely. I know it was a busy baseball weekend. I was just talking about Indiana getting an important series win over Purdue, but Indiana State also, they are the team of the state right now.
Correct. And isn't it cool? We can talk about college baseball in this state now because both Indiana and Purdue are playing well. What Indiana State has done the last couple of years is remarkable. They're going to make the NCAA baseball postseason for a fourth time in 5 years, and it appears they've got a very good chance of hosting a regional for the second time in as many years. And I was over there doing all 3 games this weekend for ESPN Plus, and they are really good. Now, they are far and away the best team in the Missouri Valley, and they're a team that, kind of has to front load their schedule because of whom they have the chance to play. To put it in like Big Ten comparisons, they are 5-2 against Big Ten teams. So Indiana State swept Purdue. They split with Indiana. Illinois beat them on Tuesday. Indiana State had beat Illinois back in early March, and Indiana State beat Michigan State either the first or second weekend of the season. So, the Valley is probably not what it was in the heyday of Creighton and Wichita State, but Indiana State does what they can and has turned themselves into a tremendous program. And for as good as they were in men's basketball this year, frankly, they've been better in baseball each of the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a great turnaround, a great time to see Purdue, Indiana, and Indiana State. Indiana State has been really kicking it in athletics all the way around, of course, with their great basketball run this year. But they've been up there, the big boys on the baseball side of things for a few years now.
They have been, and again, let's remind people that it's almost going on 40 years now. But they made the College World Series back in '86. And again, I think that is in part because the other schools in the Valley have, were quick to adapt to being college baseball powerhouses. It is, frankly, a more recent development that the Big Ten has been a quality baseball conference. And I think there is very much a direct correlation to look at the facilities that Purdue and Indiana have built about 10 or so years ago, that a lot of that comes from Big Ten network revenue and television contract money. It has lifted all of the non-revenue sports in that league. And so when you have the facilities to recruit players, all of a sudden people tend to show up when that is the case. So again, I'll go back to my earlier statement. It's while the best college baseball is always going to be played in the SEC or the ACC, maybe because of the Pac-12 infusion into the Big Ten, that conference is going to get even better. from a baseball standpoint. But what Indiana, say, a decade ago, and what Indiana State over the last few years has done is shown you can be a top 20, top 25 college baseball program and be located as a northern team and be located in the Midwest. It is possible to get that done, even if you have to spend the first month of the season playing on the road and playing down in Florida.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you look all along for a long time, the teams along the coast and down through the south, along the southwest and southeast, the warm states basically have always produced the better programs because they can practice longer outside, and it makes a difference. There's a lot of sports that are like that. You can definitely tell the difference.
It is, but again, I think the northern schools are now a little bit better at adapting. And I'm also curious to see, we have clearly seen the impact of name, image, and likeness in basketball, I think to a lesser degree in football. Now, at what point does that get to what are called the non-revenue sports? Does that have an effect on baseball? Does that have an effect on men's soccer, on women's soccer? And the answer is, Jim, I have no idea. Again, in a sport like basketball, where there's 13 guys on scholarship, I'm not surprised that it is, you can more quickly point to, well, hey, look at this school getting better. Well, that's because they're spending the money, to get better. Does that trickle down to a sport where you're giving partial scholarships? Because that's what baseball is at the Division I level. Baseball, you're given a total of 12 scholarships, and you're splitting those up amongst 25 to 30 players on a given roster. Is there going to be a big NIL kickback for those guys? I have no earthly idea, Jim. We'll find out in the next couple, 3 years.
Yeah, we have seen it here of late. Some teams above the Mason-Dixon line. Louisville has had a good program. Indiana started to really get with it. Indiana State obviously getting with it, and now Purdue getting into the act. Michigan, of course, with Indiana's old coach up there, they're trying to do the same. Which you want to talk about a difficult spot to do that. Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's about as far north as you want to be.
But Michigan at least has a track record. You can go back to the 80s, look at the guys they produced, Jim Abbott, Chris Sabo, amongst that group. So they at least have a history. Their more recent history hasn't been as good. But as we all know, Tracy Smith can coach and Tracy Smith can recruit. So I'm not surprised if they get it turned up there pretty quickly.
What's up next for you?
For me, it will be a little college softball coming up this week because we're starting to get to conference tournament time. I do a lot of things for the Horizon League, so we got a couple of days of softball midweek. But then this weekend, it's Grand Prix weekend in Indianapolis, which means I'm going to be spending a lot of Friday and Saturday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And basically, once we get to Thursday and Friday, there's going to be a whole lot more days with on-track activity at 16th and Georgetown than not. So since the Kentucky Derby finished on Saturday, now the racing attention in the Midwest turns to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. As while the month of May started last week, May in Indianapolis actually begins about 3 or 4 days from now.
Yeah, I was in Louisville for the Kentucky Derby, but this weekend for me, instead of the Grand Prix, it will be AAU basketball up in Indianapolis, which so Indy will be a busy place regardless of what your taste may be.
That doesn't surprise me. What I would say is that this is not a weekend where I would be overly concerned with hotel space. This is kind of, again, to draw the parallel to Kentucky Derby, this weekend is kind of the equivalent of the Thursday or Thurby, which became a thing after I left town, or Oaks Day, where the locals go on Thursday and Friday. All the out-of-towners go on Saturday to the Derby. It's not like it's all out-of-towners to the 500, but a lot more out-of-towners come in for that. This Grand Prix weekend really is kind of the diehards and those that once you kind of experience the track for the first time, this is your chance to do it because there's going to be plenty of space available, plenty of seats available. You can kind of walk around the track. You can kind of take it all in. Again, my estimation on Saturday will be somewhere between 35,000 and 50,000 fans will be there just to kind of kick off the month. And so for anybody that's listening, if you're like, all right, I've always wanted to go, but I don't feel like fighting the biggest of crowds. Friday and Saturday, those are the days to do it. And again, a reminder, if it's raining on Friday or Saturday, we're going to keep racing. It makes it kind of a pain at times for the paying customers but also it all honestly makes for more exciting racing at times from a road and street circuit standpoint, if that is the case. So obviously won't race through thunderstorms, but if it is raining, they will keep making right and left turns come Friday and Saturday at the track.
What are some other familiar names that folks may know on the Grand Prix circuit?
Well, obviously from the IndyCar standpoint, 27 different car and driver combinations are full-time competitors, and there's not really been a time like that in American open wheel racing where that many teams and that many drivers are competing on a regular basis. You've obviously got the Team Penske cars of McLaughlin, of Newgarden, of Will Power. You've got the Ganassi cars of Alex Palou, who has been so good since he made that jump to that team, of the Iceman, of Scott Dixon. You've got the Andretti cars of Colton Herta, Marcus Ericsson, Kyle Kirkwood. You've got the Arrow McLaren cars led by Pato O'Ward and the winner of the Centennial 500, amazingly 8 years ago, and Alexander Rossi. It's one of the things that has made this series so appealing right now. There really are anywhere from 12 to 15 drivers that you feel on a given Saturday or Sunday can go out and win a race. So if you've been coming to the track for the last several years, it's a lot of the same names that you're going to see on a regular basis. Allow me to point something out. This is a month where Kyle Larson is going to do the double. And obviously he had a dramatic win at Kansas in NASCAR last night. He is not running the Grand Prix. He is going to run the 500. So if you're coming this weekend to see Kyle Larson, don't wait until next Tuesday, because the 14th, that is when he would take to the track for the first time for practice.
But that's an excellent way to see some of the drivers that if you don't want to go through the experience, or if you're not someone who goes to the Indy 500, wow, what a great way to go see some of the great drivers without having to deal with all the crowds.
Correct. And obviously the practice days, Tuesday through Friday, you see a little more of a crowd up next Friday on Fast Friday. But again, you're looking at 10 to 15,000, maybe they're going to be at the track. And again, it is such an expansive facility that 10 to 15,000 people seem like 500 people. You're not bothered in terms of getting in and out and finding a seat, and lines to concession line, lines to buy your souvenirs. So there's plenty of opportunities. If you don't feel like being a part of 300,000 plus on race day, you got plenty of other chances to go and have a great time. But frankly, spread out, kick back and relax and play hooky from work if given the opportunity.
And Greg mentioned the win by Kyle Larson yesterday in NASCAR. That was at Kansas, and it was the closest finish in NASCAR history yesterday at .001. It was just like the Kentucky Derby. It was a photo finish, but this was a four-car, well, it wasn't a four-car photo finish, but you had four cars, and I heard a stat afterwards that said the first to fourth would have broken the previous record for Kansas closest finish by itself, which just a hell of a race.
It was. And again, the side-by-side pictures that made their way around social media last night of Saturday's Derby finish and yesterday's Kansas finish was really something to see. And again, I'll be honest with you, I'll pay attention to the Daytona 500. I'll kind of pick back up right before Brickyard weekend to know enough to be dangerous from a NASCAR standpoint and talk intelligently about it on the radio. But that was a heck of a finish last night too.
Greg Rakestraw from the ISC Sports Network. Appreciate you, my friend.
You got it, buddy. We'll talk next week.
Absolutely. Have a good one. We've got lots more coming up, including the Todd father, Dustin Dopirak, as well from the Indy Star. Plenty more. Hope you're ready to get started. Get your week going, even though it's a little rainy out in central Indiana, at least. Brack with more, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda, and again, the Autograph app, where unhinged fans get unreal rewards. The first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app at either your Apple app or Google Play Store today, where unhinged fans get unreal rewards. You get some crazy ticket prices, and I'm not kidding. It's great. Just go to the link, as we said, link.ag.fan/autograph. ISB Media. We're back with the Todd Father right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right. Good morning, Todd.
How are you?
Good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Perfect. You know what? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you can hear us?
Yeah, is that the same?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm not going to use my headphones.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think Jim said sometimes that they delay or whatever, but I had them in and they weren't connecting, but I can hear you.
Sometimes there's background noise that bleeds through. I guess it's the speaker background noise, but I don't notice it right now, so I think you might be fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting in my truck with nothing around, so shouldn't be a lot of noise. What have we talked about in the show so far?
He just finished up with Greg Rakestraw, and they talked a little college baseball and a few other things, but nothing super specific other than the baseball stuff, I guess.
Cool.
What's up, Todd Father?
How you doing?
I'm all right, brother. Oh.
Did you go to Alabama this weekend?
No, I went to the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, did you? Well,
But they had a hell of a weekend down there.
Yeah, no kidding. They're fun to watch. They're for an AAU team. They play together well. They're fun to watch.
Dude, they went 5-0. They're now 12-0.
Yeah, that's not unusual though. Like those teams usually don't lose more than 1 or 2 games in the summer, maybe 3 or 4. But I mean, that's not unusual for a team that good.
Let me pull up my stats. Moreno went off in the last game.
Yeah, I saw you like 30 points and
30 and 10.
Yeah.
All right, guys, got about 30 seconds.
On South Walnut in Bloomington and is your one-stop shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday to start your week off, and no better way to do that than with the Todd Father, Todd Leary. How's it going, man? How was your weekend?
Well, it's going good. I mean, there's probably some better ways to start your week off, but I appreciate the intro.
Do you have a little tan?
I played golf this weekend. It wasn't super sunny, but I did play some golf. I've been
Looking
out a little
like
bit.
Yeah.
I always tell everybody it's my blood pressure.
Yeah. Boy, don't talk to
we
me
get
about
older.
that, boy.
As we get older.
Yeah, that's not even funny. No.
Yeah.
But I tell you, somebody who was busy all weekend, I went to the Kentucky Derby to catch that. We had a hell of a NASCAR race on Sunday. But AAU, the guys were in action from Indiana Elite, and they had a 5-game swing down in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was a great run for that crew as they go 5-0, now 12-0 on the series play this summer so far. But it's the same 3 guys in Braylon Mullins, Trent Sisley, and Malachi Moreno who continue to lead the way, and it's not the same one every time. That's the great thing about that. They have switched. You start off on the first game on Friday. Braylon Mullins leads all scores with 28 points, 6 of 10 behind the 3-point line, by the way. But Trent Sisley has 22. Malachi has a double-double. And then Malachi Moreno ends the weekend with 30 and 10. And Trent Sisley with another double-double, 14 and 13. So a great weekend for those guys.
Yeah, that's a for an AAU team. If you want to catch some good basketball, high school / college age kids, super highly rated kids that play well together, that team is fun to watch. I don't enjoy a lot of AAU basketball because some of the teams are just so selfish, but that's definitely not the case with that team. And I know that they're headlined by those three players, and rightfully so. They are the three most touted players on the team, but they've got some great guards. They got some really good guys that come in off the bench. Mark Zachary, I'm telling you what, he's the most underrated. I guess I shouldn't say that. I don't hear people talk about him very much.
As a basketball player, he's underrated because he's looked at as a football player.
I'm telling you, he's a game changer. He is one of those guys that I'm telling you right now, every single player on his team loves playing with him because he's always in the right position. He always makes the right pass. He's quick as a cat. He is he's just that dude you want on your team. And so the whole team in general, for an AAU team, if you get a chance to go out this summer and watch them play, it's definitely worth the ticket.
Well, you can go see them this weekend in Indianapolis, as they should be. I'm going to assume they're going to be at the Pacers Athletic Center, although there are multiple venues for the event this weekend. I would assume that they would be at the Pack, as I will start calling it.
Yep.
But they were just there a couple of weeks ago, and this will be your last time, I think, to get to see them here in the state, as they have the rest of their deals start to move all over.
Yeah, the circuit for them, the level that they play is mostly national and across the country. But we're pretty fortunate to have the Indiana Elite program, obviously based right here out of Indiana and originally started in Bloomington. And Mike Fox, that coaches that team, does a great job with them. All the guys involved with the Indiana Elite program do a really good job with those big time teams, and boy, they bring in some players and they get them to play well together. Like I said, it's a fun team to watch play.
Yeah, and not only that, their goal is to win a championship, which is always a good thing to have. But it's to see these guys continue to get better. And sometimes you don't get that in AAU ball because it's AAU ball,
right?
But they really seem to play with an essence to win the game. And that's why I think that it's not the same guy leading them every time. It's because each game is different.
Yeah, and AAU is, it is different. Teams are, they have different goals, and that's really what it's made up for. The AAU is made up for, it was originally started for these guys not to win championships, but for them to be able to improve their individual game throughout the summertime. And so that when they got to their high school team, they were better players individually. They had improved and that stuff. And, it blossomed into now it's way more highly recruited than college or high school basketball is. And, but there's also layers of it. So when you talk about this Indiana Elite team, I mean, there's hundreds of Indiana Elite teams across the state. This one is the elite team in that age group. And there are a couple, there's usually 1, 2, maybe 3 deep in each age group that are elite teams. And they're a little different. They handle things differently. They're trying to win championships. They are, this Indiana Elite team is an AAU-based an Adidas-based AAU program. And so they're trying to keep their status of, the top Adidas team, or one of the top teams in the country for Adidas. And, Under Armour has that same program, and so does Nike, and I think Puma's trying to establish one now. But this level of team is different because they're all highly recruited. They're all going to have scholarships if that's the route they choose to go. But these guys are a little different. And that's why I said this team's fun to watch, because they're trying to win. They're not just trying to improve as, players individually. They're trying to improve as a team.
Absolutely. Give Chris Jackson a shout out. You're his
Man, how about
all-time
that?
favorite.
I mean, I super appreciate that, but I hope you're kind of exaggerating that. I mean, there's a lot of people you could have enjoyed watching play more than me. But I
No,
appreciate
man.
it. Thank you very much.
Also, let's see. Russell says that it's early 2025 recruits. Sicily leaning towards. Let me dispel this Iowa thing. Putting up Iowa is because that comes from a site that has Iowa that is like leading. That could not be further from the truth. I would put Iowa in maybe the fifth spot right now, easily behind Indiana, Purdue, even Notre Dame, Michigan State. So Iowa is not up there. I don't know why that got put up, but Iowa is not leading. And I'll be honest with you. To me, it's Indiana and Purdue.
Yeah, and that's probably pretty accurate. I mean, I would say you see what happens every year now with, I mean, I don't think a year ago we would have all sat here and said Mark Pope would be coaching at Kentucky. So every year there's so many dramatic changes that it's hard to tell what it'll be like a year from now or 2 years from now or whatever. But, Iowa recruits the state of Indiana well. I mean, they appreciate players that come from the state of Indiana and how they're coached not only through their high schools, but through AAU and that stuff. And so I don't blame them for that. And they always put their name in early. They were in on Tony Perkins, after his freshman year as a sophomore. Like, they get in early on these Indiana guys. And I don't blame them for that. And so to put them in that regard, I probably I'm mostly 99% agree with what you're saying with that. I don't think they're even in that top 3 ranking, but it also wouldn't shock me down the road if that ended up being a place that he picked or put it in his final 3. He has such a great following from his family. Like you and I were at the game, a week or 2 ago or whatever it was. And I mean, it wasn't mom and dad there. It was mom and dad, aunts, uncles, cousins, third cousins. Like, I met people that
Cousins and cousins.
I love that. Like, they spend a lot of money to get into those venues. Like, we know what it costs to get in there. It's not cheap. And they're traveling, from the very southern part of Indiana all the way up to Noblesville and Westfield to watch them play. It's a fun group. So to say family's not going to be involved in that decision, I think would be probably a little silly to not think that. But also, he's going to make what decision is best for him. He's an outstanding player. He's only going to get better. He's going to get more physical and big and strong. His shooting is going to improve, although he's already a good shooter. His upside, he's already rated super high, and his upside's gigantic, I think.
Yeah, great weekend this weekend. 22 points, 14 points, led with 13 points. The only game that him and Malachi Moreno did not hit double figures was a game that was a 50-22 game.
Right, yeah. And their first couple of games were huge blowouts. So, that is the time, especially early in those tournaments, that the coaching staff's going to play guys who maybe don't average 25 every game. And that's just the way AAU, that's what AAU's for. Like, that's what those games are for. But yeah, they're a fun group to watch play for sure. Yeah.
And as far as Malachi goes, I have no idea, man. He's going to be where he's going. He has got a three-headed monster because he's got Calipari that was at Kentucky,
right,
that's now at Arkansas, where he told me he believes he's going to take a visit. Then you've got Kentucky, which is right next door to where he lives and where his mom could come watch him play. And then you've got Indiana, which would make it more difficult for her. So it's going to be interesting to see how his recruitment turns out.
Yeah, and that dude he's a program changer. I mean, he is that good. But he's probably also, like, he's so physically matured already. He's probably a one and done, would be my guess. Those things kind of change. But his game is kind of a one and done kind of game. And yeah, I'm sure, like, He's from Georgetown, Kentucky, which is like 25 minutes from campus of
Yeah,
of,
it's
Lexington.
that.
So that's obviously a huge advantage. That's one of the reasons why we give Indiana an advantage in Trent Sicily, because of the proximity and ease to jump up 69 and be right there at the games. But I mean, it's not the overall determining factor. If he goes somewhere and there's that super comfortable feeling, or in today's world, we can say it, if he goes to Arkansas and they offer him a package that's so big, I mean, they've got unlimited NIL money. I mean, this is almost better than the NBA because there is no salary caps. There are no limits to what you can offer a kid. And we're not talking, the NBA, some of those guys are talking $25-50 million a year. I mean, these guys are talking way less money than that. And it's still a, big time million/billion dollar industry. So yeah, it's hard to tell. Money's going to factor into a lot of these decisions nowadays. But he appears to be a good kid. I mean, I had a 2-second conversation with him. Speaks very nice. He's very, very nice and a good kid. That's one of those guys I'm rooting for him, and I don't really know him that well, but he seems to be a really good kid.
He's a super, super good kid, as is Trent Sicily you talked about. And then Braylon Mullins. This guy is also going to be, I said in something somewhere I wrote, he reminds me of a young Kyle Guy. I don't know if that's fair to say, but that's kind of what he reminds me of. He's got that long, lanky ability to get a 3-point shot off over top of a lot of guys. But he's not just that, man. He's an athlete. He likes to get to the rim and try to stick it in your face.
Yeah, and he battle, and he likes the battle. Like that's what I got out of him and seeing him in person versus, especially in high school. You don't get to play as physical in high school games as you do in AAU or especially college. And so watching him play in person, like I was beyond pleasantly surprised. Like I enjoyed watching him battle. Like he liked the physical nature of guys bumping him when he was driving, and he's skinny. He's super skinny, but he's kind of wiry, strong, skinny. He looks like, I feel if you go out to Greenfield where he's from, half the town's last name is Leary, and I'm related to most of them in some way, shape, or form. My dad's family was all from Greenfield, so I'm related to all those people out there in some way. I don't know most of them, but I'm related to them. So I feel this connection.
I bet you they all know you,
because I spent a lot of time in Greenfield as a young kid growing up. So I mean, I've always kind of considered it not a second home, but I have a tie to it. And so I've followed him since I first started hearing about him a couple of years ago, but getting to see him in person was different. He's better than what he's rated at. And I think the ratings are quickly catching up because he's getting more highly rated as things go on. But I think, late in the high school season, late in the college season, he started getting a little bit more publicity. That's going to increase dramatically based on his AAU performance this year so far. And he's going to have every offer that there is. He's that kind of player.
Yeah, and it's going to get busy in the state of Indiana because you've got Indiana, who is recruiting very, very hard. You've got Matt Painter, who recruits the state, obviously, very, very hard. Micah Shrewsbury is now getting he's putting his balls into the state.
We've seen him everywhere.
I guarantee you he's been all over the place, man. And then now you add into the fray Dusty May at Michigan, which you already have Michigan State and Tom Izzo, who has been for years done a good job of doing that. And you mentioned a minute ago Iowa, and they have always come in and found guys, whether it was there was actually been a couple from Newburgh, but the one that went to Iowa, then to Xavier, but then the guy that went to elsewhere to Clemson. There's just so many guys that this state produces every single year. It's crazy, but
and don't think Indiana State and Coach Graves there is not going to, pick up some steam and momentum based on their season that they had. He's going to be a name we're going to talk about. He's a Dusty Mayes type guy that we're going to talk about. I mean, Graves in the state of Indiana. I mean, what they've done at Butler and everywhere, like they're a basketball family. Like he's going to continue that. Evansville's got great coaches. Like the state of Indiana is going to get pounded when it comes to recruiting here.
Things that Thad Matta, Mike Woodson, Matt Painter, Micah Shrewsbury, just in the state. And I didn't even mention Indiana State and the Evansville guys. So
I know. And then you're going to be right on the border. You're going to have Louisville recruiting the heck out of Indiana. Like, yeah, it's going to be different.
What's up next for you, sir?
Same old. You can obviously see I'm on the road today, headed down to Kentuckyville. But not a lot. Look forward to our conversations every week.
This weekend, back up at Indiana at
I'll be up there.
Pacers Athletic Center. So looking forward to that. And
we should get a watch party. We should get some fans to come out and watch that with us. That'd be fun.
I would tell them this is your last chance for people to go see them. I think this is the last opportunity that they will be in Indy. So there you go. Come out and see them. Check them out. Hey, thanks a lot to Todd Leary.
You're the best, man. Thanks.
Appreciate you. Todd Leary, brought to you by Remax Realty and Cheryl Sizemore. For those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and that includes Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star as the Pacers roll on in the NBA playoffs.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for airport,
Jim, that's correct.
Yes.
Just landed. Yeah. What's up?
I've done many of those.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just got my baggage. I got to go find a train. Well, I got to go find a bus to take me to the train to get to Brooklyn, because everything in Manhattan's $400 a night tonight. So yeah.
Are you going to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge?
Say again.
Are you going to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge?
I'm not. There's a train that can take you there. So
I've done that once. I've done that once. Yeah, I walked from Manhattan to Brooklyn to a pizza place.
Well, there you go. That's a reason.
I
might. I don't
walk.
know. It's close enough. I honestly I gotta situate myself in Brooklyn to figure out where I'm exactly at. So sorry, there's gonna be.
So they're playing it, but they're playing at MSG, right?
Yeah. They're playing at the Garden. Like you just can't I looked at our portal and I couldn't find a hotel for less than $400 a night. Am I frozen?
I think you're back.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's hard not to take the train. It drops you off right
Sorry.
below Madison Square Garden, man.
Oh yeah. No, I mean the Penn Station's great. I mean it's great to have Penn Station right there. It's a huge help. I mean the train in general is extraordinarily helpful here. It's just hotels are crazy in San Francisco too, and you have to take an Uber everywhere. So this is a lot nicer.
How have you been?
Hanging in, man. Hanging in. It was nice to have a couple days at home. To have them not play over the weekend was nice.
Another odd starting time at 6:30.
Is it 6:30?
But that's good for you.
Thought it was 7. Am I crazy? Or is that one's gonna be on TV? Let me look.
It says 6:30. Was this game 2?
No.
Or this is game 1, right?
That's game 1 tonight.
It says 6:30
Yeah, let me look.
on this.
Got 30 seconds, guys. Here we go.
It's 7:30.
Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right. 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, starting off your week right, and lots to get to as the Pacers begin round 2 of the NBA playoffs and see if they can get to the conference finals, but that runs through New York, an old foe. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star is in New York right now covering the Pacers as they begin their odyssey. How's it going, brother?
Doing all right, man. Yep, flew in this morning, so getting ready for this. It's really cool. I think just that this is rivalries being renewed. Obviously, I think Tyrese Halliburton made a point of saying like it's kind of fitting that you get back in, and this is one of the teams you face. I mean, it's obviously different this time around. I mean, certainly there was a lot of bad blood that kind of kicked up overall that time with Reggie Miller and John Starks and all those guys and all the back and forth. In this case, Halliburton's close with all these guys, at least several of these guys. I mean, he and Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart all played together at FIBA, the World Cup, this offseason. He and Brunson became really close. He said, that Brunson was one of the first guys he called when the Pacers qualified, when they, clinched a playoff berth and stuff. And so they keep in touch a good bit. So it's not going to be as chippy, frankly, as the Bucks series was. But you're going to see kind of the old fan rivalries, like Pacers fans going to have reason to hate Spike Lee again. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be entertaining.
And Tyrese is not quite Reggie Miller. He doesn't, like you just mentioned, he's close to a lot of these guys. Reggie wasn't close to anybody, especially he had the old school mentality of, hey, when we're playing, I hate you. And I love that. You're going to miss that. Man, you can think back and you can feel the angst in that tournament and how awesome that it was.
Yeah, no, I mean that happened in Milwaukee. I mean, the Pacers had a very chippy, bordering on nasty battle with Milwaukee. Like you can tell Lillard still plays that way. Lillard still has that kind of chip on his shoulder. Patrick Beverley certainly does, and Patrick Beverley probably needs to calm it down for various reasons because he's about to get suspended, fined, who knows what else for his antics between what he was doing with the fans, what he did with the reporter, and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, you can take it too far. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously this group is, it's a generation that's different because it's been a generation that's been, raised playing together, whether it's AAU tournaments or international stuff or whatever. These guys have more reasons to make friends with each other. And so I get it's more entertaining from a fan standpoint. There's probably ways in which it makes for a better basketball product. They do get along. It certainly makes for better Olympic teams, I think. The fact that the world has caught up, the United States at least is helpful that it is more basically there's more camaraderie between the best guys now, and I think that you'll see that make a difference in the Paris Olympics where you have Durant and LeBron and Curry playing together and trying to come together for one common cause of getting themselves a gold medal. But yeah, no, I mean it does make for some fun stuff for playoff things, but there's a trade-off either way as far as that all is concerned.
Well, let's set the table. The Pacers and the Knicks, both teams that are have not had a lot of playoff success in recent years, but this is an opportunity for somebody to move forward and play in the conference championship.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Knicks managed to make the semis last year before they got beat by Miami, won that first round series with Cleveland. And so they've got at least some level of understanding there. Obviously, Jalen Brunson, I think, has also had playoff series, with Dallas. Basically, he was with Rick Carlisle and Luka Doncic. So he's had some of it. Obviously, the Pacers have not as a group, but they do have Pascal Siakam, who has won a title in Toronto. But yeah, no, in both cases, it's very much an up and coming group for both of these teams, both coming off pretty tough series. New York in particular, I mean, they drew the 76ers card that you knew was going to be tough considering Joel Embiid was back. So it's a different Philadelphia team that you'd seen in the last couple months of the season when they certainly faded with Embiid out. That's a tough tough card to draw, and Tyrese Maxey was playing fantastic basketball. So the Knicks had to play really, really tough and win some really close ones and get obviously lucky in game 2, with just that mad scramble where they had, I think, 6 points in, 18 seconds or whatever it was, got benefited by what should have been, the NBA even said should have been a foul call against Tyrese Maxey. But they pulled that off. And so both of these teams are here. They got no reason to apologize to anybody for any of those, but it's two, teams that are youngish as far as getting to this stage. Again, the Knicks have a little more experience than the Pacers do, but two teams that are kind of on the rise and trying to get themselves into a situation where they could end up probably playing Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. But teams for which this is going to really matter, whatever step they can take here.
Well, I can tell you ESPN members of ESPN staff have zero confidence in the Pacers. I'm looking at a quick poll, and I think it was 16 different people, 16-0 picking the Knicks to win in between 5 and 7 games. Even the Minnesota Timberwolves and Nuggets, the Timberwolves have 2 people picking them against the defending champion. So I'm like, okay, come on. You're kidding me. You're telling me nobody thinks the Pacers can win? That's probably a good place for the Pacers to be then.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between things they can and things they will. I think they can. I don't think they will. I could be wrong. I frequently am wrong when it comes to predictions. I mean, I picked the Knicks to win this round. So I guess throw me in there, but I'm not. I wouldn't say they can't. I've seen this team enough times do things that I didn't think it could do. So it won't surprise me very much if they win the series. It's not a toss up. I mean, I would say if you're kind of saying, percentage wise, I think it's a 60% bet that it's probably the Knicks, just because, again, they have a little more experience. I think Brunson's just really well built for this. He's played fantastic basketball. He's taking a lot of shots, but they're doing a lot of things that build around him well. I think Anunoby really fits what Tom Thibodeau wants to do. They went 20-3, in the regular season when they had Anunoby. He was obviously out with a lot of injuries, so that kind of shrunk his window there. But he really does a lot of what Thibodeau wants to do. Their bigs do their job, but I like what they have defensively on the wings. They have a great shooter in DiVincenzo, and then Brunson being a really good go-to guy. They're just a tough-minded team. It's not going to be easy. you got to really work to beat them 4 times. It's going to be difficult. They can do it. I think the Pacers beat the Celtics twice, but ultimately I think Boston is the one unbeatable team for anybody in the East at the end of the day. But I do think I would favor the Knicks in this series, but I don't think you'll get anybody saying that the Pacers can't win. They might say they don't think that they will, but it's not that they can't. But also, Minnesota, man, Minnesota's legit now. Like, Anthony Edwards is the real thing. He is the real thing. So, that is going to be a fun series over there.
What are the Pacers missing that allows everyone to be confident? Not saying that they're going to get beat 4-0, but that they're most likely not going to win this series.
I think experience for one thing, and part of experience, I think, is finding out what you don't have yet. I think that's the biggest. They don't know what they don't have yet. That's one of the things you find out when you go to a playoff series is what you're missing, and whether that's individually or collectively. And I think, for one thing, Tyrese Halliburton has had a fantastic season. He's been incredible for most of the year, but he's obviously had some struggles down the second half. Halliburton is not going to be able to just take over a game the way that Jalen Brunson can, in the sense of, I'm going to go take 30 shots and find a way to score 40 points. Halliburton's not built that way. And he's not built that way mentally, but he's also not built that way physically. And, that I think is something that he has to devote himself to. And it's going to take some physical transformation. I don't know that he's ever going to turn himself into looking like what Jalen Brunson does and be the type of guy that sort of can be a bowling ball and just bounce off of guys and find his way into a mid-range jumper that he knocks down every time. I don't know that he's going to be that, but I do think he needs to be more physically well built to take that kind of pounding, to put himself in a situation where he says, I need to go get 20 shots tonight. I need to go take 25. I need to find a way to score 30 because that's what my team needs. I don't know that, it's not always the best for him to do that. But if he had to, I don't know that he's built to. right now. And I think that's a step he needs to take. And so, like that's going to require an offseason. That's probably going to require several off seasons for him to really be devoted to that, especially because if he's going to be in Paris, he's going to have to be in game shape pretty fast. He's not going to be in physical transformation shape. He's not going to have a lot of time for that. He's going to need a break, and then he's going to have to gear up to go to Paris and gear up to go to Vegas first when they'll be, doing training camp and whatnot and get prepared for that. So it might be a while before he really, becomes that type of player. So, I mean, that's one thing. I think they need another shooter. I think they lost something significant when it came to Buddy Hield, and they haven't replaced it. Now, Halliburton has had to be their movement off the guy while also being their point guard. Just doing some exchanging ball handling duty, with Andrew Nembhard, which has worked reasonably well. But I mean, it's forced him to be kind of two different guys. And so I think that changes things. I think they could use somebody like Hield, who really had a lot of gravity and space in the floor. They could use somebody they can pick up. And their defensive guys are tough, but they need to get tougher. I think there's a step up that they can make. Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith have become guys they can really trust to take on top assignments. They're not Anunoby. And they're not Josh Hart. They're really good defenders. I think they're getting a lot better. And I've got a ton of respect for those guys. So I'm not trying to say that any of those guys are not, turning into really good defenders. I thought Andrew Nembhard got a lot better in that series guarding Damian Lillard. But there are steps those guys can take to become, more top defenders. So there's a lot of pieces. I think a lot of things they can get a little bit better at. Again, they're not going to get their doors blown off. They're going to win games, I think, in this series. They're not going to go out there and get swept. They're not going to go to the Garden and just wilt. They're better built for this now that they've had that freak out moment that they had in Milwaukee. They're not going to have that in the Garden. Again, they've won a couple games. They won a game there this year. They went 2-1 against the Knicks. They're not going to go there and just get, they're not going to fall over. But I do think at the end of the day, there is something that they're going to miss.
What does the Pacers have to do to have a chance to win this series?
Well, they got to rebound. Well, I mean, obviously they got to shoot it first off, and because when they shoot, they're a lot better. When they can make threes, they're a lot better. I mean, when they're forcing their way to try to score in the paint, I mean, they have to get points in the paint. That's a baseline for them because they led the league in points in the paint. But their paint attack isn't usually enough to carry them against a great team. I think that they've got to get pretty good to great shooting, around that if they're going to be able to win games. And the Knicks are not going to make it easy for them to score in the paint, so they're not going to get a 70-point in the paint night, like they've had against Atlanta, who just lets them get to the rim at will. The Knicks aren't going to do that, so I mean, you're going to be lucky to get 50 in the paint against the Knicks. You're going to be real lucky to get 50 in the paint against the Knicks. So if they're going to make that hard on you, you've got to be able to hit threes over top of them. So that's necessary. Obviously, they're going to need, Halliburton's got to shoot at least pretty well. They got to get pretty good shooting from Aaron Nesmith. They got to get Siakam to hit 1 or 2. Andrew Nembhard hit 1 or 2. Need Miles Turner to be able to do that. I think Miles Turner's really big. I think on a bunch of levels because I think the Knicks have two real, just true, stay around the rim type of bigs, and Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson that they kind of flip out. Turner's got to be able to drag them outside. Turner's got to be able to force them to come out and guard him at the 3-point line, hits some of those pick and pop threes, hit those foul line jumpers he hits on short rolls. He's got to be a weapon. I mean, basically in the 2 games they won, he was excellent. And in the game they lost, he was not very good at all. It was one of his worst games of the year was the game they lost. And the games they won were 2 of his best. So I think he's got to be really good. They got to rebound it. They got to make sure that they keep the Knicks off the glass. I think the Knicks grabbed 37% of their offensive rebound opportunities over the course of the 76ers series. They can't let them do that. Obviously, the Pacers have to be able to get up and down in transition. That's really important for them. So to do that, they've got to grab defensive rebounds. They can push on you if you make buckets. Basically, if you celebrate, the Pacers will try to run it up right on top of you, and they can get score that way. But that's certainly not the most effective way to run a transition game. Is letting people score. That's not the best way to do that. So they've got to find a way to make sure they're not giving up second chance opportunities as much as they can.
We've got to take a break. I'm assuming you need to get running today, but if not,
I can hang out, man. I got to get a bus eventually, so I can hang around for another segment.
Awesome. We've got Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star live from LaGuardia Airport right now in New York as the Pacers are set to take on the New York Knicks in the conference semifinals of the NBA playoffs. Back with more, brought to you by Freethink Apparel and Promotions for all your needs, whether it's 20 T-shirts for this upcoming family reunion or 200 for this summer's recreational softball league. Freethink Apparel meets your printing needs. Their team of industry experts works with you to design a professional-looking, sales-generating web store for your custom design apparel or promotion merchandise. From large corporations to small businesses, high school sports teams, and national accounts, Freethink Apparel delivers no matter where you are. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. We're back with more Dustin Dopirak right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I've done more shows from the Indianapolis airport than any other airport.
I believe it. Makes sense.
It's usually not a bad spot.
Yeah. Now it's better. I mean, what was I going to say? I mean, it's better to do it from the place you're leaving than the place you're going to, because you got to go pick up your, I had to check luggage because it was, full flight and everything. So, you don't want to leave your bag there and try to do it.
Too bad we don't have a backdrop of Rikers Island.
Yeah, no, we don't have that.
Well, Rikers Island. It's not as pretty as it sounds to be. Rikers Island is where they have it's more like a prison.
Oh, I know. I mean, I watched enough Law and Order to know that's where they send
There you go. There we go. Yeah, that's exactly where I learned about Rikers Island.
Exactly. So no, when you go to Rikers first and then you go to Attica. I mean, that's like I'm fully aware of how Jack McCoy makes threats.
Can you imagine just thinking that's just your stopovers, Rikers Island? It sounds like a bad place to be to begin with.
Oh, it is.
It sounds like the end.
It's not. It only gets worse from there.
So what happened to Rod Wilmot?
Something happened to Rod Wilmot?
Yeah, well, apparently he's in a little trouble.
Oh, man. That sucks.
Nothing popping up yet. Whoever posted that, where did you see that?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I found it. I found it on Fox 35 Orlando. Yeah, that's not good.
Oh. Woo.
All right, 30 seconds, guys.
Oh, man.
Needs. So there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf Community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Getting your week started off right, brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East, located off College Mall Road in Bloomington. Hoosier Hanks has an array of custom pizzas, stroms, baked wings, mock bowls, fresh salads, and so much more. Dine in, carry out, or have Hank cater your next event. Hoosier Hanks East is a great place to watch games or gather with your team after the game and use their exclusive party room for your next gathering. Order online at hanks.com or visit them at 1285 South College Mall Road. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. He is traveling in New York for the Pacers-Knicks series that begins today did we determine the time? Is it 6:30 or 7:30?
7:30.
7:30 Eastern time. So that is game one. Man, getting a win on the road would be such a huge thing for the Pacers.
Yeah, sure was. I mean, it was extremely important that they got one in Milwaukee in the first series. Basically, when you can flip home court advantage, that changes so much. Obviously, when you get to come home with momentum for Game 3 and Game 4 in a series like that, especially when you're a team that hasn't made the playoffs in a while. Obviously, it gets your fans riled up, and you certainly saw for Game 3 and Game 4, they really rode the wave. I thought of really raucous Gainbridge crowd basically in both of those games, and so it makes a big difference. And if you can flip one on the road, if you're not 2-0 when you come home, that's a big deal, because basically if you're 2-0, you're behind the 8 ball the rest of the way. Basically, because even if you win both of those games, you got to go back to their place and try to beat them there. And so, not an easy deal. So if they can pull off one in the Garden this weekend, not this weekend, feels like
back in your college coverage days, did you have to do the AAU circuit at all?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Big time fun, sitting in a gym all day. Just kidding. It's not, but it's part of the deal. And as I mentioned earlier, before you joined this, Indiana Elite now 12-0 on the Adidas 3SSB circuit. They won 5 games this weekend in Birmingham, Alabama, all sorts and sizes. They won one game 50-22 and another game 96-90. So their games were all over the place, and they've got 3 different guys that lead them that are 3 of Indiana's top targets for the 2025 class, in addition to Jalen Harrelson, which makes that 4. And to me, now, in the way it's set up, 4 is the absolute most freshman I would imagine a team wanting to bring in because of the transfer portal.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. But that'd be a big deal. I mean, if IU could swing that, that'd be a big deal.
That's a grand slam home run getting those 4 guys.
Sure, yeah. No, I mean, so we're talking Harrelson, Sisley. Let me look. Who are the rest of the guys who we're talking? Who else?
The other 2 were Malachi Moreno was actually from Kentucky. He's from Georgetown, Kentucky, which is right next to Lexington. But he plays on this Indiana Elite team with these guys, along with Braylon Mullins from Greenfield Central, who is one of the hottest shooting guards out there.
Mm-hmm.
You add Jalen Harrelson to that, and he at point guard. So now all 4 of those guys play 4 completely different positions. That's what makes it so kind of unique.
Mm-hmm. I mean, now I will say I've seen this movie before. So pump the brakes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because the odds of landing all 4 of those guys are probably extraordinarily high.
Yes, I think it's at a different level than it was when you're talking about Yogi and Patterson and Hollowell and Perea and Peter Jerkin, which was the 5 that were on the.
Don't forget about the movement.
That is who they are. I spoke the names of all 5 members of the 2012 movement class. So I'm not trying to kick them around, man. I know Ron Patterson's back in town. He's doing some good stuff. So I'm not going to kick those guys around. All those guys have had their journey, basically in terms of other places they've landed, but obviously was not quite the program changing class that they were expecting it to be. Obviously, Yogi had a terrific IU career. Everybody else moved on in some way, shape, or form. Don't want to get too excited about some of these things, but those are a couple of big time players right there. And if they would land those guys, that'd be a big deal. And I think we always talk about the balance of in-state versus out-of-state recruiting for Indiana and the difficult way, like how hard it is to balance. I mean, I know for Tom Crean that was difficult because it's you start to feel like there is some level of belief that if you're an Indiana kid, like you're supposed to get an offer as soon as you prove that you have any right to play at the college level. And I think there's there's also there's just a lot that goes on basically when you're trying to keep kids in state, but there's also players out of state that you got to have some interest in. I mean, I think Like it is an important baseline. It's your number one natural resource. It's the amount of talent that comes out of the state of Indiana. But on the flip side, I don't think you can win a national title with just Indiana kids. Unless you have a truly special class.
You can't even win a title with just Indiana kids, even with Zach Edey.
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, you can come close, obviously in that case. You obviously have to figure out a way that you can balance all of it. But I think you still have to be really good there. And, when you have great players coming out of the state, you got to find a way to get them if you're Indiana. So it would be a big deal if they could, just as many of those guys as they can land as possible, I think is a big deal. Anybody they can get out of that is a win. And so, they got to be focused on that team, I think. And also I do think it's important that they, find a way to get guys that are not, Mike Woodson's proven that he can get top line talent. I think that's the thing that he has proven over and over again. It's about, constructing the roster around that, getting the rest of the pieces to make it make sense, to create a style of play that is sustainable. And I think that's the one thing he hasn't proven he can do yet. Or it's not he hasn't proven he can do yet. He hasn't committed to it. I don't know what it would be like if he decided that's what he wanted to do. He hasn't committed to a style of play that he, uses to inform his recruiting. He recruits first and then creates a style of play later, which I understand, but in the same way, I feel like at this point he hasn't. It's just creating that, and that means knowing what you want in terms of guys that are not going to be pros. Like when you're picking those guys up, who are you looking for, and what do you want to see? And I think that's the one thing you haven't seen, that there's a plan as far as that's concerned. But he's going to be in good shape to get some of these guys. They're top line players. He can prove he can get them in the NBA. So he's going to have a shot at them.
Yeah, with how the roster is already set up right now, even with the last two spots still open, it looks to me that Mike Woodson is set up to be as successful as he has been at his short time in Bloomington, and that includes with Trey Jackson-Davis and Jalen Hutchefino, just because of the extra pieces around everybody. It's more of a complete unit.
Seems to be. Still haven't seen him hit the floor yet. You're talking about some young guys, coming in the portal, in Carlisle and Miles Rice, and you see how they fit together and what they look like when they're playing with some of these other players. So when they're playing with Ballo, when they're playing with Malik Renew, who exactly, exactly just how everything comes together. Obviously, they still have Mbako, they still have Trey Galloway, they still have Anthony Leal. It does seem to be the best collection of talent so far. We'll see how that translates. We'll see what that looks like once they get into actual play. But yeah, he's and Luke Goody. He has had some very real wins in the portal. Obviously, he had to get a lot done in the portal, and he's done it. He's accomplished as much as you could ask for in the portal, I think.
How difficult is recruiting the state of Indiana going to get now? You've got Dusty May at Michigan, which they've always dipped their toe in. But I think it's going to be more 2 feet in now with Dusty. You've always had Tom Izzo and Michigan State coming down. Iowa has always come over and been able to pluck some guys. You've got Indiana, Purdue, Butler, Notre Dame now, who are all players with Thad Matta, Mike Woodson, Matt Painter, and now Micah Shrewsbury. That's as tough a lineup to face off the court as you can imagine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think to your point, Dusty May will be kind of, like Beeline used to do it all the time. Remember, the Stu Douglases and the, Zach Novaks and those guys and Mitch McGarry, Glenn Robinson, Beeline really made a point of recruiting Indiana. And so I imagine you'll see Dusty May do the same thing. Obviously the difference is, Beeline really did have a plan. You would talk about a guy who had an understanding of what he wanted and what he wanted his roster to look like. Beeline really, really got that. It is going to be difficult. It's going to be hard to keep, kids in state. Obviously, the one thing the portal does is it, gives you an opportunity to get those guys back on the back end. If you don't get them the first time around, you have an opportunity to get them, even if there's somebody you miss that goes to a smaller school or whatever, you can get them on the back end, or just decides he doesn't want to be out of state anymore. So that certainly helps your cause. But yeah, no, it's going to be difficult to recruit with all of those guys, all of those players going after all of those coaches going after these players.
Yeah. I saw Micah Shrewsbury a week or so ago, where last time the event was in Indianapolis. He was able to go even though it was a dead period because his sons are playing in the event.
Right.
So that's a nice little caveat to be able to stick your head over and watch the guys you're recruiting play right across the court.
Yep. No, for sure. And he's not the first guy to take advantage of that. You know, a bunch of them have during that
Which
time.
is totally legal. Totally legal.
It's 100% legal, and it should be. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like, again, like you got to be allowed to be a dad. You know, like, especially if you're going to, you know, if your kids are high school age and they're doing the same things you're doing, like it cannot be easy for them to really be able to focus and really watch their kids. So they got to have that opportunity. That's got to be, you know, like I get how it's probably an unfair, you know, recruiting bonus on some level, but, you know, got to be allowed, and just in some ways for them then be able to check them out and stuff like that. And you know, I mean, they're still, you know, for a lot of them, they're not necessarily coaching their kids, but they should be able to coach their kids. They should be able to watch their kids and say, like, hey, you got to get better at this and better at that.
Absolutely. I know you're in New York on work and you'll be there short little time, but will you get to go out and do anything? Will you get to go find your favorite lunch spot or anything like that?
Yeah, a little. I mean, not favorite, basically. I mean, like, because I'll be in Brooklyn, and I've got to find out what my favorite place is to go in Brooklyn. So, I mean, I've liked it. I'm trying to think of, like, I've been there before. I think when they were in a tournament in Barclays.
If anybody has any favorites right now, kick them out, or any nice spots.
Yeah, I'll take your Rex by the Union Street station in Brooklyn if anyone's got anything. So, you know, I guess I'll determine. You know, just because of. Again, you can't stay anywhere in Manhattan for less than $400, so I'm not going to be spending as much time in Midtown as I usually do. But yeah, I mean, we'll you know, find a place to go for dinner tomorrow night and, you know, check out as much as we can.
Well, I hope you certainly enjoyed it and get to take some time in without having to work all the time, because that can certainly be taxing. But it's also not the easiest place to get around either.
Yep. So I'm looking. I got to go catch the Q70 bus to I think the Roosevelt station. Then I've got to get on the R train, and I've got to get the R is going to take me from Queens to Manhattan down to Brooklyn. So I'm going to make the whole rounds.
Doing the alphabet soup line today, brother.
I'll be spending a long time on the R train today. So
go get on it, man. Don't miss the train. We can't have that. Appreciate your time, man. Enjoy it. We look forward to it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. He is in New York as the Pacers take on the New York Knicks in the semifinals of the Eastern Conference semifinals. And nobody's picking the Pacers to come out of this with a win. We'll certainly see. Don't forget, brought to you by the Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria Island, Florida. If you're already in the area, or will be, the Ugly Grouper has much more than just unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them we sent you. You just go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. And we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Indiana football it's going to be they're in a slow period, but the roster movement continues to happen. We'll talk about an unfortunate situation for Rod Wilmot. But the football team has seen, they saw Kobe Minor hit the portal, but they were able to fill that back in quickly with another transfer from JMU. I think that makes number 23, which that is an amazing number. And you have to feel sorry for teams like that, but that happens all over. That's just the way of the world now. Coming up next, we've got Travis Miller from the Boiler Upload. We'll get caught up on all things that happened over the weekend again, and whatever else you'd like to talk about, whatever that may be. Brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Good morning, Travis.
Morning, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Good.
I'm just peachy.
Well, yeah, you guys won the baseball series yesterday because we blew it in the ninth.
What a way to
Blew it
lose.
in the ninth.
Yeah, Purdue
Not-
was up 4-1.
Not
with one
you
out in the ninth.
guys. It's not you guys. I am a neutral media member.
Yeah, Purdue was up 4-1 with one out in the ninth, about to win the series and stay in first place, and they completely fell apart, gave up 4 runs.
They were up 4-1 in the ninth.
4-1 in the ninth, one on, nobody out.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a tough way to lose.
Yeah, it and I don't know if Indiana hit. I think Indiana hit one ball out of the infield for it too. It was rough. It was very rough.
What was the final? 5-4.
5-4, yes.
Hey, baby, that's how the cookie crumbles, right?
Yeah, Indiana went single, single, walk, infield single, walk, error.
What is the what are the standings?
It's actually pretty tight. Indiana is tied with Purdue and Nebraska for second place, a game behind Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois. So Illinois leads it.
Yes, Illinois leads by a game. Iowa
Where did Illinois come from? And what happened to
played well in
Michigan?
conference. And this is a big weekend too because the top 6 all play each other.
Who plays? Who plays schedule? All right. So today is that's the 7th.
All right, here we go, guys.
Any more Honda in Bloomington? Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by the Fresh Fork in Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, getting your week started, brought to you by the Fresh Fork. Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Order online and let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code radio20 for $20 off your first order. Welcome in Travis Miller from the Boiler Upload, and not a lot of recruiting action to talk about on the Purdue side, as we know they were pretty set on in basketball. Baseball over the weekend, a gigantic series between Indiana and Purdue at Purdue, and that, if you were a betting man, I would have certainly probably bet on Purdue to win that series, but it didn't. That's why they call it baseball. Things don't always go the way that you think they're going to go. And Travis, as you mentioned, that the rubber match was a crazy one, with Purdue leading 4-1 in the 9th inning with 1 on and no outs, and Indiana is able to pick up 4 runs and go on and win that game 5-4 and the series, which was a hugely important series to win, but that had to be tough for the Boilers and Boiler fans to take.
Yeah, absolutely. Purdue took the Friday game 7-4, and really Indiana kind of let that one go because they had 4 errors in the game. I think they walked in a run or two. But what kind of stings for Purdue is they got 6 shutout innings from both their Saturday and their Sunday starters. They were up 1-0 going into the 7th on Saturday, absolutely fell apart, gave up 6 runs in the 7th, ended up losing 10-2. And then, like you said, they were up 4-0 going into the 7th, gave up a run, still up 4-1 going into the 9th. And it's not like Indiana just kind of, started hitting doubles and triples and home runs or anything. No, 9th inning, 1 out, nobody on. They go single, walk, single to the pitcher, walk, and an error. And that's how they get 4 runs. So just a rough weekend overall for Purdue. They left 10 runs on base and kind of feels like they just let 2 games get away. But in terms of the overall Big Ten standings, it's going to be a very, very exciting finish. Right now, you've got Illinois is in first place at 13-5, Nebraska, Purdue, and Indiana at 12-6, a game back. Iowa at 13-8 because they have played an extra Big Ten series. Things do get a little weird this time of year in the standings because Wisconsin doesn't have a program. So there's at least one team off every week, and Iowa's already played 21 of their 24 games. And then Michigan is at 11-7, just 2 games back. All 6 of those teams play each other next week. Iowa goes to Illinois, Indiana goes to Nebraska, Purdue goes to Michigan. So it's going to be a very exciting week this week for the Big Ten baseball championship because really any of those 6 schools could win it. And that's what makes Indiana's series win so huge. They dropped that game yesterday. Purdue's in first place and Indiana's 2 games back. Now they're a game back and they really kind of control their own destiny with the next week's series at a very good Nebraska team.
Yeah, this weekend will kind of weed out, I guess, a couple of the teams, and it has the ability to kind of split this in half. Right now, we're looking at 5 or 6 teams with a shot, and the winners out of next weekend will probably come out of that with some separation, but it can go in any direction possible. Surprised to see Illinois up there, and really surprised to see Michigan down where they are. Michigan is one of the teams in the Big Ten that has been one of the better teams of late, and now they've got IU's old coach who came back from Arizona State, and they're sitting down there in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th spot right now. So they're not out of it. They're only 2 games back, which that's amazing. That's amazing to say that the 6th place team is only 6 games back.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting and tight grouping. And Purdue actually finishes the season with Illinois. So in terms of wanting to control everything, Purdue's probably in one of the better spots to be playing Michigan and Illinois because if they get hot and win those games, they knock out 2 of the teams that they're competing with. But, Indiana is also in a very good spot. They've got Nebraska next week at Nebraska, and then they play Michigan at home. So it's going to be a very exciting finish here. I think both Purdue and Indiana are right in the hunt. Purdue, when Indiana won Saturday's game, it broke an 11-game Big Ten win streak for Purdue. Now, a lot of that was against the bottom of the conference, and that's kind of how you talk about how basketball next year is going to be so bizarre with the home and away, and you only play 3 teams home and away each. The Big Ten in baseball, you only get 8 conference series against the other 12 teams. So sometimes it just depends on who you get to play in there. Purdue has weekend sweeps of Rutgers and Northwestern, and they're a combined 6-30 in the Big Ten. So, that is obviously buoying their record up a little bit, but you still just have to go out and win who you play.
Well, and I look down at Maryland, who they must have had either a forgiving non-conference schedule or they have just fallen off in conference play because their overall record is 31-18. Just a half game behind Purdue as the highest win total in the conference, but in conference play, they're under 500 underwater, so they're way down there in like eighth spot, which is a little surprising to see. But I think, how many teams though, unless they went other than the conference champion winner, will have a shot at an at large bid, because none of these records really stand out greatly. I'm not sure. Will the Big Ten get any at-large bids?
I think Nebraska is probably a lock right now. They've got a solid RPI of 21. I think they're going to get in regardless of where they finish in the Big Ten. Maryland's RPI is still very strong at 35, but where they're in danger is if they miss the Big Ten tournament, which only the top 8 teams go, they may not get into the NCAA tournament as a result, despite their RPI. And then I think you've got whoever wins the regular season title, if it is not Nebraska, will have a leg up. Purdue, Indiana, Illinois, they all have RPIs and between 60 and 70, so they've got a lot of work to do. But if they can finish strong, I would say go 5-2 in these last 7 games before the Big Ten tournament, and then win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament, they can be right there. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think both Indiana and Purdue are at least in the hunt to make it, and that's what makes things exciting. I mean, Purdue has only made the NCAA tournament 3 times, and the last time they did was 2018. Indiana has obviously had a lot of success over the last 10 or 15 years. They made the College World Series that one time. And they were in there last year. So who knows what can happen. I know 2 years ago, Ole Miss was quote unquote the last team in as an at-large bid, and they made a run and won the whole damn thing. So I think the Big Ten's probably going to get 2 or 3 in. I don't see them getting beyond 3, but a lot depends on these next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And so looking forward to seeing how that ends up, because it's always just a fun springtime. The thing is, the Big Ten plays the conference tournament in Omaha, and how that came to be, I really don't know. I mean, you've got Nebraska, obviously, out there, and they're one of the better teams, but is it just an opportunity to play? Where do they play this? Do they play it at the same place the College World Series takes place?
Yes. And credit to the city of Omaha. They threw everything they could to keep the College World Series there, because I know there was talk of it leaving, and they basically built a major league caliber stadium in downtown Omaha so they could play it there. And it's heavily used 2 weeks a year, and that's about it. But I believe Creighton plays some games there, and then getting the Big Ten tournament there is at least another use for the facility and everything. So it's just a way to kind of, give that facility some use. And I know that the teams in the Big Ten like playing there, and a few years ago Michigan ended up winning the thing, and they got all the way to the national title series. So I like that it's there. I think it's kind of unique. I know they have talked about moving it around a little bit, but it seems to have found a bit of a permanent home in Omaha.
Yeah, and there's no reason for it not to stay there. Right? It's just leave it there. I'm cool with that. I think it doesn't really offer an advantage to anybody. Unless Nebraska were to make it, maybe, but that hasn't happened in the past. So it's kind of a cool tradition to have, because the city of Omaha, like you said, it is their baby. They freaking love it. They embrace it. It is a gigantic, it's sold out every year. This is not, hell, go look at all the NCAA tournament basketball games. How many of those are sold out? Until you get to a certain level, doesn't happen. And so, yeah, it's a great summertime experience. Looking forward to it. Who are some of the other teams that you've kept up with? I know my daughter goes to Ole Miss, and she's not happy because Ole Miss is not having a very good year, and they usually are one of the teams that plays very, very well.
I follow the University of Miami. My wife was a bat girl for them when they won their last national title. So we really enjoy that we're able to watch them, and they are having one of their worst seasons ever. They are on track to have their first losing season since the 1950s. So, but part of that comes from they play in the ACC. Both the ACC and the SEC are just a level above every other conference. They usually put 9 or 10 teams each into the NCAA tournament. Right now, if you look at the top 25, it is just dominated with those two conferences. Right now in the coaches poll, you've got number 1 Texas A&M, number 2 Arkansas, number 3 Tennessee, and then Clemson's 4th, Florida State 6th, Kentucky 8th, Duke 9th, Virginia 10th, North Carolina 12th, Vanderbilt 13th. I mean, just up and down. These conferences dominate. So it's exciting to see. They when they're pulling in 10, 15,000 fans a week at Mississippi State per game. I mean, look at what Purdue did. They set an attendance record this weekend against Indiana, and it was 2,600 fans. That's a light Tuesday night game for some of these schools in the ACC and the SEC.
Oh, no, that's not a light. That would be a miserable turnout. I think Ole Miss holds 13,000 for their baseball stadium.
But if you want some local flavor, check out Indiana State. Last year, they hosted a regional. They won it. They were on track to host a super regional, but they had to give it up to TCU because of their commitment to host the Special Olympics that weekend. And they are on track to host again. So the Mighty Trees are 34-10. They've got an excellent RPI of 10. Probably going to win the Missouri Valley Conference again this year.
And there's no way the NCAA is going to screw them again like they did after the NCAA men's basketball tournament. So, yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, they're going to get into the tournament at least. You don't miss the tournament with an RPI of 10. And if they're a host again, they're going to look to put Indiana or Purdue, if either one of those teams can sneak an at-large bid or if they win the Big Ten tournament, they're going to go to Terre Haute, and that gives some nice local flavor. I would love to see a very local regional there, especially if like Ball State could win the MAC tournament or something. You get 3 teams from Indiana in an Indiana regional. That could be a little fun, honestly.
Absolutely. Over the weekend, the Indiana Elite, that includes a recruit that is being chased by Indiana and Purdue, Trent Sisley, and his compadres. We talked a little bit about this earlier with Todd Leary. Had another great weekend as they go to 12-0 on the circuit season, 5-0 over this weekend. Big wins over multiple teams like the Atlanta Celtics and an array of teams from all over Ohio, Texas. And it was just each game had a different quote unquote star, whether it was Braylon Mullins, Trent Sisley, or Malachi Moreno, one of those 3. And they were all 3 the top 3 every time. But that comes to Indianapolis next weekend, as it's telling people, if you want to get out and see these guys, this is probably your last chance to see them play in this format. You will see Trent Sisley and Braylon Mullins play in the juniors versus the seniors in June, if you want to go to that, but that's further north up in Kokomo. But they will all be in Indianapolis next weekend playing in the Adidas May Classic. And looking forward to getting back out there. But that is some great basketball to see.
Yeah, I've never really been to any of the AAU events, but I can understand the desire to see them just because, like you said, a lot of the top recruits are there. And it's neat to see them go against each other, and especially up in Westfield there, because it's at Grand Park, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's 4 different places where they're going to have it, but I'm going to assume until I hear otherwise that Indiana Elite will just be at the Pacers Athletic Center in Westfield.
Yeah, and Indiana is it's such a central location for basketball. I mean, you go outside and you can find a good basketball anywhere to watch in the state, and that's what makes it so great. And I'm liking, I'm loving the old school recruiting battle here. Indiana versus Purdue for Trent Sisley. Wherever he decides to go, it's going to be he's going to be a great pickup for either team.
Yeah, Indiana's got a battle with Purdue going with Trent Sisley. They've got a battle with Kentucky in regards to Malachi Moreno, and you can throw Arkansas into that because of the Calipari leaving for Arkansas. So that's kind of a three-headed recruiting monster. So they've got a battle against John Calipari still, and with Kentucky, and then that leaves Braylon Mullins, who. I mean, other than Indiana, I don't know who really would be in the mix there. I know he's got a ton of offers, but that one seems we'll see. We'll see if anybody else can come into play on that one. But it's fun to watch these games.
Yeah, and it seems like Purdue is all in on Sisley right now, honestly, for the 2025 class, because they don't have a lot of flexibility. We still don't know how they're going to get down to 13 scholarships for next year. They are still one over now that the portal is closed. And how do they settle that with who they've got coming in, the big 6-person class? Does somebody go to a prep year? If they go to a prep year, technically Purdue's full for next year, because they are the only senior on the roster this coming season is Caleb First. So Matt Painter likes to, as he says, get old and stay old. Well, that's his plan right now. You're looking at another one-man recruiting class next year at best. So,
but here's the deal. If he only brings in one person, that's still going to give you 7 in that year. That will mean that 7 of your players at a minimum are underclassmen. So more than half your team would be underclassmen. And that is where I think that the balance of bringing this 6-man class is going to hurt them a little bit, as opposed to having either been able to pick up a transfer portal or having been able to keep Mason Gillis for a year, because that's a huge loss to me. I know, and so many Purdue fans think that when I talk about it, they're like, he wasn't run off. Well, you can call it whatever you want. I don't care what you call it, but it was known and he had to leave. He knew he had to leave, as did Ethan Morton. Now, it's the only other thing is the other person just doesn't know it yet because they're not a senior. These guys had played 4 years already. And that was Matt Painter's plan. Have them for 4 years, not for 5 years. And while I'm not saying it in an ingenuous way, or that Matt Painter did anything, despicable, that's how he does it. He has guys for 4 years, and that includes sorry, Mason, and sorry, Ethan, you got to go. And that's because of his recruiting. And how he wants to keep with that. But I think that there's going to be that lull. If he has 7 guys that are underclassmen, that's going to be that could possibly show up.
Yeah, and it's just going to be interesting to see how they fit in this coming season, because with the jump that Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith made from their freshman to their junior seasons, you get a couple of guys that are able to do that. You have the entire team come back in 25-26. And I think there is a lot of benefit from that. Personally, the way that I view college basketball is if you can keep a core group of guys together, that's going to be more beneficial in the long run than rolling the dice with, 4 or 5 transfer guys in a season. They may click together. They may not click together. And if they don't click together and a couple leave for the NBA, you're back doing the same thing the next year. So, I mean, Matt Painter's proven that this works, at least on the level of winning Big Ten championships. He's won 4 of the last 7 and come within a game of 2 more of those. So I'm going to trust it. You don't lose a player of Zach Edey's caliber and expect to stay at the exact same level, but he's got 3 starters returning. He's got a couple of key bench players returning in First and Heidi, and he's got some real talent coming in the backcourt with Jakari Harris and Cannon Catchings. A couple of those. I think what makes the difference here is he's not going to have to rely on all 6 freshmen to come in and play 30, 35 minutes a game next season. He might have one of those guys play 30 minutes a game next season. The rest of them are going to be coming off of the bench, and they're going to be able to integrate themselves to where by the end of the year, they should have some good chemistry together. And then assuming the entire team stays together, they only lose one definite guy in 2025-26, and that's Caleb First. Obviously, I don't expect that to happen. Matt Painter is recruiting Trent Sisley like there will be an open scholarship, so he probably he could probably see somebody leaving in that time. But as of right now, I like that he's going to have the core of this team together for the next 2 seasons. And to me, that's a very good thing, is to have that continuity. Look how it paid off for Purdue. He had the core of the 2023 team all come back, and it ended up in the national title game. So who knows what's going to happen, but he has had a lot of success. So I'm going to trust him on this, honestly.
Well, I think the deal for Purdue is can they keep all 6 of the guys that come in after that first year? And I find it hard to believe that you're going to go 6 for 6 and all 6. Anybody is going to go 6 for 6 in keeping guys on a new team in this new era. Somebody is not going to be happy and probably find a different place to go to. But more importantly, what is Purdue going to do to replace Zach Edey's numbers and his production? Because there's no way that's going to be done by one person.
I think things are going to shift around. I think you're going to see them go more guard heavy, kind of like they did during Carson Edwards' final year, where they shifted away from the post. It took them a couple of games to get used to it, but they won the Big Ten and came within a second of the Final Four. So they're going to rely heavily on Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith in the backcourt. You're going to see Trey Kaufman-Wren get a lot more of a focus in the post. I think it will be very interesting to see how Caleb First bounces back, because he did not have a good junior season. And this is a guy that started a bunch of games in his career. By the end of the year, he was barely playing, mostly because he was Zach Edey's backup, and Zach Edey was playing 40 minutes a game in the tournament, trying to get him a national title. So I think First coming back will be big. I think you'll see Miles Colvin play a larger role. You'll see Camden Heidi play a larger role. I think you'll see Cannon Catchings play a big role as a true freshman. And it'll just be about taking that 25 points a game and trying to spread it around to other guys. You're not going to get somebody do all 25, but if you can get a couple of guys that up their average by 3-4 points a game, I think it can balance out in the long run. And I think you'll see Purdue play a different style and look very different, because they won't be post heavy, and you can't be as post heavy without a Zach Edey like that. I mean, he did so much for them. You can't expect anybody to replace him and that production instantly.
Last thing, Sean says that the players told Painter that they weren't going to stay, which I'm not buying that. Again, that's not what I have been told and what I've heard, and that it was the opposite of that. Not, again, in any acrimonious way, but just a matter of fact, hey, this is, how we're going, because of this is the direction we're going. Would you concur with that, or?
I think it was mutual, especially a guy like Gillis. See, Gillis was already there 5 years. Gillis redshirted as a true freshman. So, I don't think there's any acrimony. Both guys got their degree.
Oh, I knew there wasn't any acrimony.
Yeah, both guys got their degree. Both guys, I think, knew coming into the season this was the last ride. And, I would love to have kept Gillis around. I think he would have filled a dominant role, or not a dominant role, but a fantastic role. I think he's going to have a very successful season at Duke. I can see him playing the exact same role for Duke that he did this past year for Purdue. 6 men off the bench, your job is to go do the dirty work, get rebounds, and shoot wide open threes.
We'll certainly find out, man. I appreciate you as always.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Travis Miller joining us here from Boiler Upload. Just go there for all of your updates if you're a Purdue fan. Brought to you by Boost Fundraiser. Know a team or a group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member, free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Just go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, C-O-Y-L-E, with period after the letters, which I'm going to have to get that clarified. That's so... I can't tell what they mean by that. Hey, we've got a little more coming up, and we'll be back with it right here, right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. That's the stupidest code I've ever seen. And it makes no damn sense because there's no period after the Y, after the E. I don't see. Well, you know what? There are no periods on it. So why don't we fix that? Rolling. Keep them doggies rolling raw hard.
You'll have about 10 minutes when we come back, a little less than that.
Beautiful. Gee whiz.
All right, 30 seconds.
In Bloomington, and is your one-stop shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Hope you're doing well. Brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, right off of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Food made fresh every day, over 50 big screen TVs. Great place to hang out, take the family, friends, and the team. I hope you had a great weekend. What did you do? What did you hang out? I was down in Louisville for the Kentucky Derby and intended to do the show from there Friday, but it was raining and thought better of it. So did not do that this year. We'll have to try to do it again next year. But now we turn our attention to, you've got AAU action this month. You've got the Indianapolis 500. That is 1, 2, 3 weeks away, basically. Looking forward to that. The May Adidas Classic comes up the 11th and 12th, which is this coming weekend. Up in, it's at 4 sites in Indianapolis, but the Pacers Athletic Center in Westfield at Grand Park is the hub of all of that, and where we will be watching Indiana Elite amongst others as they continue their run, trying to go undefeated and win a championship. Well, I mean, going undefeated is something that you always want to do, but the biggest goal is winning a title. And talked about, they had a great weekend. This weekend, Jalen Harrelson was also in action over the weekend as well. And not quite the numbers that some of the other guys had, but he's a point guard, and that's his job. So, but we'll be following all of those. And you can also go to thehoosier.com and keep up with all of that action as well. The NBA playoffs move to round 2 or the conference semifinals tonight for the Pacers as they are in New York to take on the Knicks at the Garden. Our good friend Dustin Dopirak will be at the Garden. We spoke with him earlier. Greatest venue that there is, just a cool spot. The Timberwolves take on the Denver Nuggets. How are the Nuggets the number 2 seed? Is that right? Is that what I'm reading? Who in the hell is number 1 in the West? What am I missing? I can't remember.
It's Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is number 1 team in the West.
Wow. A little surprising. I didn't keep up with the West Conference, of course, but the Lakers, they fired their coach. They will be going on. They've had 6 coaches in 13 years. That's not good. But of course, in professional sports, it's not all that different. More news on football side of things for Indiana. You know, they lost Kobe Minor last week, and a very, very good defensive back, of course. But, and to each life, a little rain must fall, but they fill it right back up with another transfer. They get a linebacker that came into Indiana over the last week, and then, but more importantly, you get a defensive back that is going to hopefully fill that role that Kobe Minor left open, as it's considered a pretty big land for Indiana. D'Angelo Pons, he's a 5'9" defensive back from James Madison. He obviously has some ties there. Kurt Signetti came to Indiana from James Madison, but he gave the Indiana Hoosiers a verbal commitment. And he says the thing that made choose Indiana is just his relationship with Coach Signetti and the rest of the staff, and how much he trusts them to prepare me for the next level. One of the factors that led to my decision was me already being successful in the system that Brian Haynes runs. the DC, Indiana's defensive coordinator. So Indiana, you lose a little bit in Kobe Minor, but I think that they picked it right back up. Pons is a native of West Park, Florida. He was a consensus All-American defensive back at James Madison last year. That's pretty good. College Football Network freshman quarterback of the year, and also second team All Sun Belt Conference selection. He finished last season with 52 tackles, 2 interceptions, 12 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery. So he was very, very active in the secondary. He was in high demand, one of the top players available in the portal at the time of his commitment. He had heard from nearly 24 programs and had an offer from USC. So this is not some Johnny come lately. This is a talented piece. And who knows, it could end up working out better for Indiana and Indiana football.
1 minute.
You never know. But we will certainly keep up with it and as they keep rolling. And we've got lots to keep up with this week, whether it's the Pacers in the playoffs, more recruiting, as although the portal is closed, there is still the fallout of the people that are in it and where they might or might not wind up. We shall see. I cannot thank everybody enough for being on the program today. Greg Rakestraw, of course, from the ISB Sports Network. Todd Leary, the Todd father, joined us, talk some recruiting. Dustin Dopirak, as he is in New York covering the Pacers, and Travis Miller from Boiler Upload to get you caught up on the Boilers. Man, we covered it all today. So, as always, trying to bring you the best at everything we can. Big thanks to all of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. And, of course, to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.